Uganda has deployed its special forces in South Sudan amid tensions that have been happening in South Sudan, if you've been following the story. So this has happened, and Uganda is saying that they have done this to protect their own country and to ensure that refugees do not spill over from South Sudan to their country. So what is their solution? They have decided to deploy special forces. So Uganda has deployed the number, which remains still unknown, of number of troops to South Sudan in a bid to protect the fragile government of President Salva Kiir, as tensions with his deputy still threaten what could return South Sudan to a civil war. So according to Museveni's son, General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, who's also Uganda's military chief, that's quite interesting, yeah? A president's son is the general is a general in the military. Anyway, so according to him, he says that the special forces units entered Juba to secure it. Can you imagine? These special forces are not peacekeepers, but they have left a country to go and secure Juba as the capital city of South Sudan. Does that make sense to you? Well, to me, it doesn't, but Africa is becoming very, very interesting. So according to Muhoozi, he posted on Twitter saying, we, the UPDF, which is Uganda military, only recognize one president of South Sudan, and that is His Excellency Salva Kiir. And any move against him is a declaration of war against Uganda. I mean, I know Muhoozi has his moments, which he just comes and runs on Twitter, but it's very weird for a son of a president to say that if another country if a president of another country is threatened, then it is their problem, because I thought South Sudan is an independent nation, so is Uganda. But that is what he says. He says that now that any threat towards Salva Kiir is a declaration of war against Uganda. How does that sit with you well in your mind? Like, are you processing, or are you struggling the same way I'm struggling? Because I'm like, why? Why would another country be a problem to you? Why would it be a threat? Anyway, so the deployment comes as tensions between President Salva Kiir and his first vice president, Riek Machar, stoke fears of a return of civil war. And tensions have been growing in recent days in the country. And this comes after Kiir's government detained 2 ministers and several senior military officials allied to Riek Machar. Riek Machar is the first vice president, remember. So, but they are reporting that since then, one of the ministers has since been released, but the rest, we are yet to get information about the rest. So the arrests followed clashes in the Upper Nile state between the government forces and a militia known as the White Army that's widely believed to be allied with Riek Machar. So according to Major General Felix Kulayige, Uganda sent a force there earlier in the week, and this force did not go there it is not for peacekeeping. That's what he said. So don't expect that that they are going there for peace. And connecting this with what General Muhoozi had said, it simply means they are there for their own interests. It has nothing to do with peacekeeping. So Major General Felix also confirmed that the Uganda Special Forces were deployed to Juba, which is in South Sudan, which is the South Sudan's capital. And this was done to support the government of South Sudan against a possible rebel advance in the city. So it is not clear if it is Salva Kiir who asked for help, or it's just Uganda that decided we can offer help. You know, you are our African brothers, let's just be of help. That part, they have not made it clear. So remember, Kiir and Museveni are very good allies, and Museveni has, in fact, in the past intervened in the South Sudan conflict that, of course, has maintained or rather helped Salva Kiir survive or still stay in power. So South Sudan has faced political instability for quite a while, even after independence, and the instability and violence has gained the instability and conflict has been going on since Sudan gained independence in 2011. You know, this They are not Sudan. It's good I correct. I keep forgetting. Since South Sudan gained its independence in 2011 from the larger Sudan. So you remember this conflict had been going on for quite a while, many years since the 80s. And after a while, they agreed that South Sudan would stand out as an independent nation. But up until this day, South Sudan is still facing war because they have the larger portions of oil. So that's why a lot of the militia groups survive and why these leaders are always in fighting, because most of them want to be in power so they can have control over these minerals, which is oil. So civil war erupted. This is not the first time they're having this. In 2013, a civil war erupted, and when a rift between Kir and Machar escalated into fighting along the ethnic lines. So back then, it was a war that was purely on ethnic basis. Kir is from the ethnic group Dinka, while Machar is from the ethnic group, I don't know if it's pronounced as Nua or New, but yeah, that's the other group. So in 2013, when this broke out, now Salva Kiir, who is a Dinka, they were accusing a group of soldiers loyal to Machar, who were of the ethnic group New, of trying to take power by force. During that civil war, more than 400,000 people were killed in that war that took. The civil war actually went on for 5 years. So since South Sudan's independence, they really have not enjoyed peace. It's been years, 5 years. It was 5 years of war. And even now, since 2018, when they brokered a peace, a way of working on peace, the report that was to guide them on how to run and implement peace situations has not been implemented. So it is alleged that these arrests are coming back out of that because some people are not happy of how the report has not been implemented. So with the support of the regional leaders and international community, Kir and Machar signed the peace deal in 2018, and Machar returned to Juba as South Sudan's first vice president. So after that, so at least that's how that happened. So the arrests in Juba and the deadly clashes around the northern town of Nasir that are happening now are seen as some of the factors or things that will jeopardize the 2018 peace deal. And that is what had ended the 5-year war back then. So there's worry that if this continues, and also remember Sudan, the larger Sudan is at war. And then some people are citing that war in Sudan could be playing a part in the war that is happening in South Sudan today. So if you put all those factors together, the war that is happening on resources in Sudan could be what is going down to Sudan. And that is why we are having Kir and Riek Machar having these issues. So if this goes on, you know, of course, Sudan, the larger Sudan has had civil war for 2 years. If that extends to South Sudan, because of course, as refugees, people run across, some of them have crossed over to South Sudan. So if that goes on, then the whole of the two Sudans may end up having very serious implications in terms of civil war and having a lot of refugees, having people die, you know, all these things that end up. So after the civil war erupted in South Sudan in 2013, back then, Uganda back then deployed its troops again in Juba. And this was supposed to help to boost Kir's force against Machar. And they were eventually withdrawn in 2015. And again, Ugandan troops were again deployed after leaving in 2015. Again in 2016, they were deployed. And after fighting reignited between the two sides, they were also eventually withdrawn. So you would wonder, why is Uganda very worried about a war in South Sudan? So Uganda fears that a full-blown war in its northern neighbor, because of course they neighbor South Sudan, so they know that a war in the neighborhood could of course send waves of refugees across the border. And of course this will potentially increase instability because the people who become refugees, some of them are militia. So if they go to Uganda, there's potential of extending the war. So General Muhoozi did not say whether the latest deployment was in response to a request from Kir's government or how long the troops are going to be in South Sudan. And the other thing is that Salva Kiir and Riek Machar are both under pressure from the US and others to more quickly implement the 2018 peace deal and prepare for elections. The interesting thing is that this election has been postponed so many times, and even now they have elections scheduled for 2026. Whether that happens next year is something we are watching out for. But interestingly, the South Sudan's government has denied reports that there are any Ugandan forces deployed in its capital, Juba. So one wonders, would these two generals from Uganda be lying about another country? Or is Salva Kiir using this opportunity just to ensure things happen without the knowledge of the larger African leadership and maybe the world? And if that is the story, then why would that be of interest to him? Like, why would he and Uganda, be having that big trouble wanting to protect from this other community? I mean, these are things that when we speak to people from these regions, they have different takes. But that is what is happening in Uganda and South Sudan. And all we can say is, especially for us who are in Kenya, we would actually not even want that war to escalate, because we also know if it gets, for instance, if it was to get to Uganda, the possibility of getting to Kenya is even higher. So, and the possibility of even spilling to Tanzania, all these things, we are all interconnected. So hopefully it doesn't end up being anything major. I hope they are able to resolve and release these guys who've been arrested, find a way of working on the 2018 peace deal and bring peace in the region. Yeah. So if you're in South Sudan, or even in Uganda, you can tell us in the comment section what you think and you're feeling about all these things. Thanks for watching Geopolitics 411. We will see you soon. The world is fast-paced and sometimes you miss the action. What perspectives do you have? What is the truth? Is the world at war? Join me, Sarah Mwangi, as we make sense of the information overload.